Everyone. Our subject matter for this morning, no man is an island. Hopefully you'll figure out what that means. Our scripture reading, Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. Are we in need of good counsel? Because it is difficult for us to achieve our full potential completely by ourselves. It's one of the reasons marriage is so important, because every once in a while you need someone to call you out. That's not a good idea. But thankfully we serve a loving God, and He does not leave us to fend for ourselves. Why do we need counsel? Can't we do it on our own? But what does the Bible have to say about this? You know, Proverbs is a very wise book, so we're going to spend a minute in Proverbs going through a few different references. We're going to go to Proverbs 1, verse 5. And it says, "A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel." A wise man. You want to be a wise man? I want to be wise. It seems better than the alternative. But this is someone who is always looking to grow. You may have heard of the term a growth mindset. Are you looking to be right, or are you looking to grow? I heard it put one time that when you get into a situation, don't look to prove yourself right. Attempt to be less wrong. It comes at it with a little bit different twist. Proverbs 11, verse 14. It says, "Where there is no counsel, the people fall. Where there is how much counsel? No counsel. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety." Proverbs 15:22 says, "Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established." So if we want our plans to go sideways, come up with them by yourself. I'll just let that sit for a second. And then finally in Proverbs 19:20, it says, "Listen to counsel and receive instruction, that you may be wise in your latter days." You know, modern science confirms what Proverbs said so many thousands of years ago. They've done studies on very successful people, and the more successful a person becomes, the more likely they are to seek constructive criticism rather than positive feedback. But novices, put it nicely, seek positive feedback to validate their work, while the experts know that they learn more from the negative feedback. They uncover areas of potential improvement. So we're going to look at a couple Bible stories today to kind of illustrate our idea of this counsel. Because remember, what is our subject for this morning? No man is an island. Correct. All right, we're going to go to 1 Kings 12. And to set this story up a little bit, Jeroboam is proving himself in Solomon's kingdom. He is becoming a mighty man of valor. And so Solomon sees this, and he promotes him up the hierarchy. And Ahijah, the prophet, meets him in a field one day. And if anyone is familiar with the story, he grabs his new coat, rips it into 12 pieces, gives 10 to Jeroboam, and says, "I have given you 10 kingdoms because of the wickedness of the house of David." Well, Solomon finds out this, and he's not real happy about it. So Jeroboam is set to be killed. So Jeroboam flees to Egypt. During this time, Solomon dies. his son Rehoboam takes his place. Jeroboam finds out, so he comes and he has a request for Rehoboam. Maybe Rehoboam won't put him to death. So we pick up this story in 1 Kings 12, verses 2. And it says, "So it happened when Jeroboam the son of Nebat heard it, he was still in Egypt, for he had fled from the presence of King Solomon and had been dwelling in Egypt, that they sent and called him. Then Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying," so here's their request. They have some grievances against Solomon, and they're seeing if they can make some changes with the new administration. So verse 4, "Your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke, which he put on us, and we will serve you." So he said to them, "Depart for 3 days, then come back to me." And the people departed. We'll stop right there. So we're starting out good. They make their request. Rehoboam, the king, says, "Give me some time to think about it." Have you ever had a decision that you said, "I need some time to think"? You don't necessarily have something right offhand. Hopefully, time to think and pray and study and seek some counsel. Well, we'll see what happens to Rehoboam here. Picking up in verse 6, "Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father Solomon while he still lived, and he said, 'How do you advise me to answer these people?' And they spoke to him, saying, 'If you will be a servant to these people today, and serve them and answer them and speak good words to them, then they will be your servants forever.'" How does this sound? In our example of Christ in servant leadership, this would seem to fit the mold. Be a servant to your people, and they will serve you. All right, but that's not where the story ends. Picking up in verse 8, "But he rejected the advice which the elders had given him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him, who stood before him. And he said to them," so this is his buddies basically, "What advice do you give? How should we answer this people who have spoken to me, saying, 'Lighten the yoke which your father put on us'?" Then the young men who had grown up with him spoke to him, saying, "Thus you should speak to this people who have spoken to you, saying, 'Your father made our yoke heavy, but you made it lighter on us.' Thus you shall say to them, 'My little finger shall be thicker than my father's waist.'" Sounds kind of a little bit vindictive, don't you think? Verse 11, "And now whereas my father put a heavy yoke on you, I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges," or some translations say scorpions. "So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had directed him, saying, 'Come back to me the 3rd day.' Then the king answered the people roughly and rejected the advice which the elders had given him. And he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, 'My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scourges.'" So we have some good and some bad here. Did he take some time? Did he ask for counsel? He did. He actually asked for 2 different types of counsel. But what did he ultimately end up doing? He ended up doing what pleased his ear, what satisfied the self. He did not listen to the wisdom of the old guard, you might call it, his father's counselors. Prophets and Kings, page 89 and 90 says, "Flattered by the prospect of exercising supreme authority, Rehoboam determined to disregard the counsel of the older men of his realm and to make the younger men his advisors. Had Rehoboam and his inexperienced counselors understood the divine will concerning Israel, they would have listened to the request of the people for decided reforms in the administration of the government. But in the hour of opportunity that came to them during the meeting in Shechem, they failed to reason from cause to effect, and thus forever weaken their influence over a large number of people. Do we think about how our influence affects the people around us, the people that come after us, because we listen to what makes us feel good and satisfies ourselves? So we go back to the modern day science. Is he seeking constructive criticism or positive affirmation of what he already wanted to do? Now that story may have not ended up so good, but let's go to another story in Exodus 18. To set this scene up a little bit, the Israelites had just been freed from Egypt. They're headed out into the wilderness, and Moses is meeting back up with his family because they were in Midian at the time. So I'm sure it was a wonderful family reunion. But Moses is getting weary because if you know anything about the Israelites, they complain a lot. They have lots of problems, disputes to settle. They're always complaining about food and water and trivial matters like that. So he meets with his father Jethro. And this is what Jethro has to say in verse 17 here, and we'll read through verse 24. It said, "So Moses' father-in-law said to him, 'The thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself.'" We'll stop right there. Have you heard of the term compassion fatigue? So compassion fatigue is, you might put it, somebody cares too much, that they never take any time to recharge themselves, and they're stressed out by everybody's other's problems around them, and they want to help, but they are wearing themselves ragged. And I think this would be a good term to describe where Moses was at this point, because everybody's got problems, and up until this point, sounds like Moses was about the only one doing anything about it. So Jethro continues in verse 19. He says, "Listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to God. And you shall teach them the statutes and the laws, and show them the way in which they must walk, and the work they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. If you do this thing, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure. And all this people will also go to their place in peace.' So Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said." Does anybody like to be told what to do? Because Moses could have gone one of two ways. He said, "You're my father-in-law. I love you. I got it. Keep your nose out of my beeswax." He could have said that. But he said, "This is a good thing. We will follow this." In Patriarchs and Prophets, listen, this is really key here. I really like this quote. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 301, says, "The Lord had greatly honored Moses and had wrought wonders by his hand. But the fact that he had been chosen to instruct others did not lead him to conclude that he himself needed no instruction." The chosen leader of Israel listened gladly to the suggestions of the godly priest of Midian and adopted his plan as a wise arrangement. This is Moses we're talking about. Moses, chosen by God, educated in the palace, educated by God 40 years, herding sheep in the wilderness, sent by God, burning bush experience, God, through Moses, worked the 10 plagues. Even he can't do it by himself. We need our brothers and sisters around us, amen? They are not an impediment of our progress. They are with us. They are here for us. So, we've gone through a couple stories. Let's get practical now. It's like, okay, I hear you. Maybe I need some counsel on some things in my life. Where do we go? I'm glad you asked. Because what's our subject for this morning? No man is an island. Yes. So, first and foremost, we should get counsel from God. Isaiah 9:6. It's one of God's names, you know. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isn't that so encouraging? One of God's names is a counselor. He is there to work through things with us and for us. We don't have to do it on our own. Proverbs 2:6 says, for the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. All right. So how does God speak to us? Speak to us through the Holy Spirit. He speaks to us through his word. There are several different ways that God communicates with us. James 1:5. This is a very familiar one. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. You know, Jesus says, ye have not because ye ask not. God is a good Father who wants to give us everything that is within his will, but he will not give us something that we do not ask for. Back to Proverbs, we're going to go to Proverbs 1:7. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Who despises wisdom and instruction? Fools. I don't want to be a fool. So how do we not be a fool? The fear of the Lord. Recognizing who God is and what he can do for us. And in Psalm 32:8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. So God promises to be our instructor, our counselor, our guide. We can rely on that. Isn't that a blessing? Second place, which is not too far from the first place, is the law. Did you know the law was a counselor? Because if you were here for my series in February, you will know that God's law is an extension of his character. So it is an expression of himself. Let's go to Psalm 119:24. It says, your testimonies are my delight and my counselors. The NIV actually uses your statutes. Let's go to Psalm 119:98. It says, you through your commandments make me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever with me. Have you ever thought about the commandments making you wise? Because remember, we look at the law as an expression of God's character, not a list of do's and don'ts. Do's and don'ts don't make you wise, but understanding God's character will. Psalm 19:7 It says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. All right, now we're going to move into the earthly realm a little bit. The next place to get counsel from is your parents, especially children if you're listening, and even big children if you still have parents. Proverbs 1, 8, and 9. Proverbs talks a lot about this too. It says, my son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. Children, did you know there's a blessing for following what your mom and dad say? I try to keep that in mind still, because my parents are still with me, and they have many good things to say many times. We're going to go over to Proverbs 6, verses 20 and 23. It says, my son, keep your father's command, and do not forsake the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you roam, they will lead you. When you sleep, they will keep you. When you awake, they will speak with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light. Reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Reproofs, there's that word again. Correction. It doesn't sound nice, but God is telling us that is the way to life, because none of us have it figured out completely. We all need a little course correction every now and again. Proverbs 15, verse 20. It says, a wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish man despises his mother. Don't despise your mother. It's not a good idea. So parents are a wonderful resource if yours are still living. The next place is trusted friends. We're going to go over to Hebrews 3:13. Paul has a couple good words to say about this. It says, but exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. So what does exhort mean? So I looked it up in the Greek, and it says to call to one side, to encourage, to comfort, to urge, to implore, to entreat. This is a word of love and devotion to your fellow brothers and sisters. It is not calling out the sins of everybody you see in the church or the people around you. It is for love and support, to encourage. Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. It says, let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. There's another example of exhorting one another, coming together, worshiping, fellowshipping with each other. And our last one on this, Proverbs 13:20. It says, he who walks with the wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. There was an author and motivational speaker, Jim Rohn. I think he might be passed away now. He's a little bit older. But he had a saying, you are the average of the 5 friends you spend the most time with. So look around you. Who are you? Not the 5 friends you want to be the most like, but literally the 5 friends you physically spend the most time with. So if you want to improve yourself, look at who you surround yourself with. You know, the church is not a bad place to start if you're looking to upgrade your surroundings and your influences. Because you will aim to where your friends are. It's how psychology works. I remember a slide in psychology class from college. They had a picture of zebras. It said, when left to do our own thing, we tend to just do what everybody else does. So what we surround ourselves with is what we are going to end up like. So take a look at who we surround ourselves with. Principles for Christian Leaders, page 53 says, without me you can do nothing, says Jesus in John 15:5. And yet many think that man can do very much in his own finite strength and wisdom. Satan is ready to offer his counsel that he may win souls in the game of life. When men do not feel the need of counseling with their brethren, something is wrong. That's a strong statement. They trust to their own wisdom. It is essential that brethren should counsel together. This I have been compelled to urge for the last 45 years. Again and again the instruction has been repeated that those who are engaged in important work in the cause of God should not walk in their own ideas, but counsel together. They may regard their plans as without a flaw, but other minds may be enlightened on some points where they cannot see or may take heed to suggestions and counsels of those who see not the truth. The Lord may have plans of a different order, not after the plans of finite man. The Bible is very clear. We are not only to seek counsel from God for wisdom, but he has also made us relational creatures. He has given us one another. He has given us a family, a brotherhood in the church, you might call it that, to love, encourage, and support each other. He doesn't leave us to fend us for ourselves. Because many times we think we can handle things on our own. I heard a phrase one time, sometimes we're so far inside the bottle that we can't read the label on the outside. You know, many times there are other people who can see things that you can't because you're too far inside the bottle. Because everyone has a little different perspective. They see things from different angles. So I'm going to share with you a few personal things that I've learned in my counseling that I've received over the years. And hopefully some of this is helpful because we're going to get really practical here for a minute. So you decide, yes, counsel is good. It's of the Lord. I got something in my life I don't know how to handle. How do I do it? I know where I might need to look, but how do I do it? Find someone who genuinely cares about you. Because if they don't care about you, you're not going to take their advice. You must seek with an earnest heart. Because if you surround yourself with yes men, if someone always agrees with you, it might be time to find a new counselor. Because they should sometimes, or many times, challenge your way of thinking. Because, like I said, they're coming at it from a different angle than you are. Be ready to consider their suggestions seriously, even if you don't think you agree. Because that goes back to the first point, finding someone who genuinely cares about you. They wouldn't have said it if they didn't mean it, and you should take that seriously. You must have respect for the person you are getting counsel from. And I'll put a little caveat in here. This is not a gossip session to complain about what's all going on with your life, and back to the yes man, to spread rumors. I'm sure you've all been a part of situations like this. This is genuinely seeking how to help yourself and the other person, not a gossip session. Because you want the conversation to be productive and not an airing of your grievances. Now, I want to put a plug in here of something my wife has found immensely helpful in our life. And that is, for those of you who are married, marriage counseling. Sometimes we have a stigma about marriage counseling. If you go to marriage counseling, there must be huge problems, and you're probably on the edge of divorce. And that's the only reason anyone would ever need marriage counseling. I want to say, let's flip the script a little bit and say, just like a professional athlete, they have coaches. Sometimes if they're on a team, they will hire separate coaches to work with them in the off season. Why do they hire coaches to work with them? Because they want to be the best that they can be. What if we viewed our marriages that way? We want to have the best marriages that God wants to have for us, because an example of our relationship with Him is not a sign of failure. Like, oh, I got to go to the marriage counselor. We got big issues. This is not going well. No, it's a way to exemplify the relationship. So when someone looks at your marriage, it says, they've got something that I want. What's their secret? Because my wife and I have done this probably once or twice a year since we've been married. We have a couple that we've been friends with for a long time. And you know what? They are not yes men. Every time we talk to them, they say, look at that. You see what that's doing to your wife? No, this over here. You see how that comes across? They don't mince words when they're talking to us. And it has been so helpful to how we view our marriage and our relationship with each other, and it gets us on the same page. And has been immensely helpful. I want to say a word to the single people out there, and I was in this boat. Your parents are smarter than you think. If you're looking for a spouse, they've been around the block a couple times. You haven't. Listen to your parents. They see things that you can't. You know, when my wife and I were dating, both of our sets of parents were very involved. We saw each other every weekend because she was living a couple hours away. But every weekend, both of us would do this. We called it our debriefing session. So I would go home and talk to my parents. This is what happened this weekend. She would be at her parents, talking to her parents, and sometimes this would go on for hours because we wanted to do the right thing. We were looking for their advice. We were not looking to subvert their wisdom and their counsel. Because one time in particular, one of the parents in the situation said, "You guys are going a little too fast. I'm not comfortable with this. You need to slow down." I didn't think I was wrong. My wife didn't think she was wrong. But you know what? We looked at this situation. Are we going to be wrong for slowing down? No. Are we going to be wrong if we continue the way we're going? Possibly. You know, we followed their advice because we respected their opinion, because we knew they had genuine love and care for us, and they see things that we can't. Because we've talked about marriage and finding a spouse, but broaden this out a little bit. Relationships in general with everybody. Because relationships are hard. I had a professor in college one time. This was actually my health professor. He said, we were put on this earth for two reasons: work and relationships. And relationships take work. Relationships do not just happen. They take genuine thought and care. And sometimes they get a little messy. Because we've had a situation with our family that some things kind of got tore up. And you know, my wife and I, we were kind of at our wits' end. And we were able to talk to different godly, fearing individuals that were able to step outside of the emotions of the situation and say, you're doing good over here. Maybe we need to tweak this area. And they told us some things that we didn't necessarily want to hear. It went against the self, but we trusted where it was coming from. And we've been able to implement some of the suggestions that they had for this particular situation. So as we close here, let's support each other. Let's not view counseling as something you need because you are weak or not smart enough or because you're not trusting God enough. It's because you know you want to find God's will for your life. You want to make the best decision. You want to honor God to the best of your ability. So surround yourself with godly people, and God will bless you. We'll have our closing hymn.
Whole stanza.
Come, every soul by sin oppressed, there's mercy with the Lord, and He will surely give you rest by trusting in His word. Only trust Him, only trust Him, only trust Him now. He will save you, He will save you, He will save you now. For Jesus shed His precious blood, rich blessings to bestow. Plunge now into the crimson flood that washes white as snow. Only trust Him, only trust Him, only trust Him now. He will save you, He will save you, He will save you now. Yes, Jesus is the truth, the way that leads you into rest. Believe in Him without delay, and you are fully blessed. Only trust Him, only trust Him, only trust Him now. He will save you, He will save you, He will save you now. Come then and join His holy band, and on to glory go, to dwell in God's celestial land, where joys immortal flow. Only trust Him, only trust Him, only trust Him now. He will save you, He will save you, He will save you now.
Hi friends, Pastor Doug Batchelor. It's time to make your plans and mark your calendars to attend our third annual Amazing Facts Youth Conference. The dates are